So to bind a simple quilted mat like this, or any quilt, you know, larger scale, I don't ever buy bias binding. Bias binding, if you're dressmaking, it's probably imperative that you get it because it's cut on the bias, so it stretches around necklines and armholes. But I just buy 100% cotton, and then I'll cut myself a 3-4 centimetre wide strip from it, and then I'll sew it. I'll lay it against each other. Move that so you can actually see what I'm talking about. If you get the two ends, put them at a right angle, sew diagonally across it and cut that bit off. You've then got a nice continuous strip. But when you come to bind it, what it means is you don't have a bulk of joining strip. You've managed to stretch that bulk over 3 centimetres, so it makes a much cleaner edge. So here we have this continuous strip, and I tend to sew on the back of my quilt first of all, so I can then top stitch on the front. But make sure that you've got your binding the wrong way up. And we will simply start in the middle of one edge, and don't sew the first, I don't know, 5 centimetres of your binding. I'll show you why. Again, 5mm seam allowance. Make sure everything is pressed and that your layers are together. And we'll just race around this quilt with the binding. You might find you want to change to a jeans weight needle or something like that because you're going through 2 layers of toweling and 2 layers of cotton. Basically, if your machine starts going bang, 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 then you know you need a sharper needle or a thicker needle. And I'm just going to sew to this corner and back it off, because I just want to show you the best way to mitre a corner. So you've gone to the corner, you've left yourself 5mm to go. If you take your binding and fold it back at 45 degrees, and then fold it forward again so it lines up, let's just pop a pin in there. So you've got this corner of fabric, and then start your stitching again, taking care, you don't have to go right into the corner. You just want to make sure that when you turn it out, which I'll show you in a minute, you've got a nice clean turnout. Just going to adjust my press foot a bit to make sure it actually is grabbing that fabric. And again, just stop 5mm from the end. I'll show you what I mean by that corner. When you turn it out, you've got a nice, neat corner. And if you sew too far, you'll catch that corner in a stitch, and it's not insurmountable, but it's easier to do it this way. So again, take your binding out at 45 degrees, fold it back again so that it lines up, and just pin it. And that's really the only pinning you need to do when you're binding a quilt like this. When it's a straight edge, to be honest, you waste so much time pinning and then taking the pins out, and you will need to pin quite a lot in the next step of the binding, so you might as well save some time while you can. And I am going to bind right around this quilt so I can show you why you've left this sort of 3 or 4 centimetres at the beginning. About there. Okay. Oh no, I've still got another corner to go yet. feeling I've set my machine foot too slow. Because I normally whip round much quicker than this. So we're going to sew, and again we're just going to stop just shy of where we started, and then I'll show you how to join this to make a perfect continuous binding. So you've got a gap here. Now trim your binding a decent amount, and what you want to do is you want to just finger press where that binding will join. Now in an ideal world you would want to do a diagonal join on this as well, but I've not yet mastered the art of doing that in one smooth motion, so I am just going to do a straight bind on this. Oh, I can't even do that at the minute. Hold on a minute. Let's finger press them and let's use a pin. To pin where you want to join it. This is possibly the trickiest part of this quilt, because you have the bulk of the quilt, and if you've got a massive quilt and no decent table, it will be weighing you down. But it is well worth doing it this way, so that your finished edge, cut that axis off, you know, it's a continuous line. There's no obvious gap where you started and stopped binding your quilt. So once you've joined that, then just go back to your initial seam line and sew right to the end, like this. So you've bound the back, you've mitred all your corners, so you can just pop them through like so. And then if you finger press 5mm on your binding, like so, fold it up to the top and pin it. And make sure that when you've done this, you can see this line here, which is where your stitching is from the back. Make sure that the folded edge of your binding covers that stitch line, so it all looks nice and neat. And when you come to a corner, with a million pieces of thread on it, where the hell have they come from? Again, finger press the adjacent side, fold it up, and that corner will just mitre in there like so for a perfect finish. Now I'm not going to fold and pin all of this, but I am just going to show you how easy it is to stitch once it is folded and pinned. And this is what I mean, you do need to pin it. If you you're just getting a muddle if you try and do this off the cuff, as it were. And also what I'm going to do is I'm just going to change the colour of my thread, because I'd really like the top of this quilt to look as if it's an invisible bind. That will do. It's not quite invisible, but it's close enough. Oh. In truth, I tend to sew most things in just a white cotton, especially for demonstrations, because a lot of the time it's easier for you to see where the white stitching is on a coloured fabric. But this isn't just a demonstration model, this is going to become part of my house, so it needs to be the best that it can be. Right, I'm going to put my reading glasses on for this so I can see where I'm sewing, because what I'm going to do is the central line of my presser foot, I'm just going to sew so that this inside fold of the fabric is 1 mil to the left of it. And you do need to keep an eye on this. There's no point trying to watch TV while you're doing this, because you need to make sure that you're keeping your work dead straight for the neatest finish possible. But also bear in mind you are now sewing through almost 4 layers of cotton and 2 layers of toweling. Put your needle into pivot. And we'll end it there. So as you can see, you've got a nice, neat finish. Oh look, that was a bit shoddy. And on the back, you've just got the white thread, but it's not so noticeable because that's going to go against your draining board. So when it's completely bound, it will end up looking like this larger scale bathroom mat. So I hope you like that. Really nice plus sign design, recycled bath towel, kitchen towel, tea towel, whatever you like. Drainer mat. Great little project, and it's a great little scrap buster as well, because the pieces of fabric that you need are so small to start with. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope to see your efforts, and I hope that we can start a whole new movement of not getting rid of horrible old towels, and we will catch you next time. Cheers. If you've been inspired to create, please share your makes with us in the comments section below. And if you've enjoyed videos by the Crafts channel, hit the like button. Want to see more of us? Then click subscribe. See you next time.